Hey guys, it's Emma. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be tier ranking all the books I read in 2023. Last year, I told you guys all the books I read. Last year, I'm pretty sure I read 30 books. And this year, I read 50 or 51, I'm pretty sure. So I went a little bit over my goal. My goal was 50. Yeah, so instead of just telling you guys and reviewing the books, I'm going to be tier ranking them just so it could be a little bit more entertaining, because I did do like wrap-ups every month. I did reading vlogs too, so you guys know most of my thoughts, so I think it'd be more interesting if I just tier ranked the books. So I'm going to share my screen on my computer so you guys could see what I'm going to be doing. So as you guys can now see, I have the rankings there, and then I have all the books that I read. So the first ranking all the way at the top says, haven't shut up about it for a reason. These are the books that, like it says, I have not shut up about. The next one says top contenders of the year. These were amazing books that I read. The next one is mid. Nothing's wrong with the book. Nothing's terrible about the book. Just in the middle. Next is personally, I didn't love it, but I would recommend it, meaning I didn't like the book, but I can see why other people would like it and why I should recommend it to other people. Next one says, I forgot I read this. Literally what it says, I literally forgot I read it. Next is not my fave, but it was tolerable. This is a book that I didn't like, wouldn't recommend people to read either, but it was tolerable enough to finish the book. And then the last one says 2023 would have been better without it, meaning I shouldn't have even read this book in 2023 at all. So we're going to start. I have the books down here in the order I read them. So first we're starting with One True Loves. I'm gonna put One True Loves in top contenders of the year. This book I really loved. Like I said, it was the first book I read this year. I did a reading vlog on it and I gave it 5 stars at the beginning of the year. I'm probably gonna change that to like 4.5, which I said that in one of my other videos too, because I did really like it when I first read it, but now it's like not one of my favorite books, but it's still a really good book. I would suggest reading that book. Next is The Last Field Party. I'm gonna put it in I forgot I read this because I honestly forgot I read it. I remembered I read it when I was looking for like the covers to put here, but honestly I did forget I read this book and the series. I read the series last year, read the last book in the series this year, so I honestly forgot I read it, but that doesn't mean it was a bad book. Like when I was reading it, I was enjoying it. It's basically like a 7-book series, I'm pretty sure, of like these football players and then the girls they get with. It honestly was a really good series. Like I enjoyed reading it when I was into it. I honestly did really enjoy it, but I forgot I read it. Yeah, the next book is Layla. I'm putting this one in top contenders of the year. This book honestly really surprised me. It's like one of the unknown books that Colleen Hoover has. Like not a lot of people talk about this book, but honestly I really enjoyed it. I think the concept of the book was really cool and definitely think people should be reading it. A Thousand Boy Kisses. It's one of these, but I'm not sure. I'm gonna put in personally didn't love, but would recommend, because this book is a very popular book. A lot of people did enjoy this book. But me personally, I didn't love it. I did like the book, but it wasn't one of like my favorite books ever. I did cry, like I did feel the emotions, but it wasn't one of my favorite books. But other people definitely do like it, so maybe it's just me. Next is All Your Perfects. I'm also gonna put this in personally didn't love, but would recommend. This book broke my heart as well, but also I didn't feel as connected as I wanted to be. A lot of people also do love this book. Next book is The Do-Over. I'm gonna put it in mid because this is the type of book that it's like Groundhog Day, like it happens over and over again until they finally like get the day right. So, and it's on Valentine's Day, so it's like a really cute book. I read it around that time. There's honestly like nothing terrible about the book, but there's also nothing like extreme about the book that like makes it amazing. I would recommend people to read it though. I really liked it. Better than the movies. I'm putting this one in top contenders of the year. This couple was so cute. They were like in high school, I'm pretty sure. It was Enemies to Lovers. I think it was a really cute book. I Gave Myself the World. I'm putting this in top contenders of the year. This is a poem book I read actually. I read 2 poem books this year, and I definitely want to get more in the new year, and I really enjoyed them. Or I'll probably just like reread them, but I really did like this poem book, and it's like not that popular, I don't think. I saw it on TikTok and got it, but I really did like it and I think everyone should read it. Next is Final Offer. I'm going to put this book in top contenders of the year as well. This is the 3rd book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. I gave this book 4.75 stars if I remember correctly, and it was a really good book. I loved Cal. He was my favorite brother, I think. maybe? I don't really know, but I loved the whole series, but this book especially was one of my favorites. Next book was X's and O's. I'm gonna put in I Forgot I Read This. To be honest, that book, I mean, it was like interesting. Like, she would blog about books and stuff. She wanted a second chance romance. That's what she wanted. And she would go on like these missions to go to like her past guys and stuff, try to like reunite with them. That's why it's called like X's and O's. And then her roommate, like her new roommate, is helping her. She ends up falling for him. Everything I Know About Love, I'm putting this book in mid. This is probably controversial because I know a lot of people do like that book. I think the issue was with the book. I think it was just the genre. Like, it was the first book I ever read that was in that genre. I'm pretty sure it's a memoir. I think it was just like the first time I ever read something like that, and it didn't really like interest me that much, but I do see why other people like love it. And if I had read like other books like that, I think I would have definitely liked it a bit more. I do think this book has a great meaning to it and storyline. So next book is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Going to put this book in mid. This is also controversial because I rated this book 4.5 stars, I'm pretty sure. I read that in a reading blog and I did really like it, like when I was reading it. You know when you like rate a book super high and then like over time you just kind of forget that it was like that good. So then that means like it wasn't that good. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I feel about this book. Like, I do remember having a great time when I was reading it. Over time, I just don't think it was like one of my favorite books of the year. Like, not a book I would remember from 2023. Next book is The Cruel Prince. 2023 would have been better without it. Also probably controversial. I know it's a very like popular book and the series is very popular. But I've spoken about this before, like I didn't really like it, to be honest. Like, I feel like at the time when I was reading it, I was trying so hard to like it because it was such a popular book and it was my first fantasy book, so I was trying to like fit in and be like, oh, I loved it. Honestly, thinking back on it, I didn't really like it. To me, I heard that it was gonna be like a romance book, and I've said it before, like it was not romance at all. It's more like pure fantasy. Like, a lot of politics is in the book and I didn't really enjoy that. That's what I need to know like what fantasy books I like and don't like, so I just wouldn't recommend reading it, to be honest. Reminders of Him. I'm putting this at haven't shut up about it for a reason. Every time someone brings up this book, I have to start ranting about it because this book, I don't know how Colleen Hoover did it, but she really puts you into the character's shoes and you feel every single emotion that every single character is going through. Every time I would get into a character's like point of view, I felt like I was them and I was in their shoes. Love this book. I think Colleen Hoover wrote it so well. And the story of the book is just heartbreaking and beautiful, and yeah, can't shut up about it. I think everyone should be reading this book. Then The Wicked King, I'm putting it right with The Cruel Prince. I'm putting the third book there too. I honestly, like I said, didn't really like the series. Honestly, I'm being too harsh on it. I'm gonna put them in not a fave but tolerable. Actually, hold on. I'm putting the last book in. Actually, okay, wait, let's fix this. I'm putting The Cruel Prince in not a fave but was tolerable because I did enjoy the first book, like it was tolerable or whatever. But the second two books, the only reason I read them was because I wanted to finish the series, but I could have lived without like reading the rest of the book because honestly it just confused me and frustrated me even more. Next book is The Dead Romantics. This one, I'm gonna put it in not a fave but was tolerable. A lot of people do like this book and the author too. I know another one of her books got really popular, which is The 7-Year Slip, which I might read in the new year because a lot of people liked that one more than The Dead Romantics. I just personally didn't like The Dead Romantics. I thought it just went by so slow and I honestly felt like I was reading that book forever, which it's not even a thick book. It's like a very quick book, but it felt so long for some reason. And maybe it's just because I wasn't enjoying the plot. I don't know. I just didn't enjoy it. You Deserve Each Other. I forgot I read this book. I did not like that book. Honestly, I'd put it in 2023 would have been better without it. But it wasn't like a terrible book. Like, wish I never read it. I just like forgot about it. It's not really like an important book to me. When I was reading it, it was kind of like annoying and frustrating to me because basically this book is about like this couple that's like married, but they are doing things to each other so that the other could end it, like end the relationship because they don't want to do it themselves. Didn't sound like realistic to me and was just really annoying because I was like, if you really want to end it, just end it yourself. Then we have Archer's Voice. I'm putting this book in, this one is gonna hurt some people. I'm gonna put it in top contenders of the year. I was gonna put it in mid, but I'm gonna put it in top contenders of the year because when I read it, I know I felt all the emotions reading this book. I loved Archer. It wasn't my like favorite but it does deserve to be at top contenders of the year because it is a really good book. Next is Sometimes I Fall Asleep Thinking About You. I'm also putting this in top contenders of the year. That was the other poem book I read. It was really good. Both the poem books I read this year aren't really like known, but I do think everyone should read those. Next is Travis, which I'm gonna put in mid because this is the second book, the book that's right after Archer's Voice, and I feel like not a lot of people read this book because they didn't like Travis in the first book, but honestly I think this is like his redemption book. Obviously I think it was written really well. Sometimes in books they like just flip the character and it's like a completely different person, but Travis in the first book was like really rude, and then in the second book you see him still kind of like that, but then you see him like become a better person because of things he does and like the girl he meets. And I thought it was a really good book. It wasn't like amazing but also wasn't like terrible. Next book is Twisted Love. I'm also gonna put this book in mid because when I read it I did really enjoy it. I have found myself like over the months going to my list of books I read and bumping down the rating because honestly when I read it I really liked it. I'm pretty sure I gave it like 4.5 stars, and right now on my list it's at like 4 stars. It was a good book, but at times it was cringy, and a lot of people do agree with this. Next book is the Magnolia Parks book, the first book, and we already know where I'm putting it. It's going all the way at the top. Haven't shut up about it for a reason. This is so accurate. I literally have never shut up about this book. Anytime someone mentions it, I have to go on a yap session about it because it is the best book I have ever read. And I'm just gonna go on and put all the other books in there because all 4 of the books that are out right now are amazing. The whole series. I'm gonna try not to talk about this book and series for too long because I'm always talking about it. Yeah, if you love Gossip Girl, I think you'll love this book series. There's a lot more that goes on, but yeah, I feel like I'm literally connected to these characters, which sounds so insane. Sometimes it baffles me that these characters are not real people and they're not going through what they're actually going through in the books. Yeah, I love that series so much and I can't wait for the other books to come out. Next is Things We Never Got Over. I'm putting this in top contenders of the year. I definitely did love this book. I will go to Things We Hide from the Light, which is the second book in the series, and I'll just put that somewhere already. I'm gonna put it in not a fave but was tolerable, which obviously is very different from where Things We Never Got Over is, which I've talked about this before, how Things We Never Got Over is definitely better than the second book in the series. I enjoyed everything that happened in Things We Never Got Over. I feel like a lot more happened. The romance was good. There's like this crime kind of aspect in the book, the kid in the book, just all the characters in Things We Never Got Over I loved. And then in Things We Hide from the Light, I've said this so much, but this book went by so slow, and honestly, at times I was thinking about like just not reading it. The only reason I kept pushing through is because I knew I wanted to read the next book in the series too, and also because I had the physical copy, so I was like, I have to read this book. Like, I can't just let it go to waste. Next is Twisted Games, which I'm gonna put this book in top contenders of the year. This book definitely was a good book. 100% better than Twisted Love. Twisted Love was more like cringy-ish, and then Twisted Games was like interesting, and also like the plot was better because in Twisted Games, Twisted Love is Brother's best friend, I'm pretty sure, and then Twisted Games, he's her bodyguard. That is a great trope, to be honest, and it was amazing. Next book is Meet Me at the Lake, and I think I'm gonna put this book, it's gotta be one of the bottom ones, but I'm not sure which one. Honestly, I'm gonna put it in not a fave but was tolerable. I did want to read this book because I read Every Summer After last year and I really did enjoy it. So I did want to read like Meet Me at the Lake because I was like, oh, I liked this book, so maybe I'll like the next book she's coming out with. And I was mistaken. I did not like it. I did push through and finish the book. It wasn't a terrible book. The setting was kind of nice. Not even, but like I kind of pictured like what it was, but the romance, I wasn't connected to the characters. I didn't really understand how they had a thing for each other, because that book, it takes place in like one day. Like they had one great day and then 10 years later they run into each other again. I've been thinking about you for 10 years from that one day. Personally, if I met someone in one day, I would literally forget about them after 10 years. Next is Beach Read, and I'm putting this top contenders of the year. It's very close to going all the way at the top. I don't talk about this book that much, even though I should, but Beach Read is such a good book. I want to reread it literally every single year. It is the best vibes for summer, and that's when I read it, and the romance in the book is amazing. Gus owns my heart. He's probably one of my favorite book boyfriends. Next book is The Summer of Broken Rules, This book I'm definitely putting all the way at the top. I haven't shut up about it for a reason. I talk about this book so much, I feel like, and I read it last summer, read it this summer, and it is still a 5-star book to me. I'm going to read it next summer too. It is the best vibes for summer. They play assassin. It's this huge family. The romance in the book is so cute. Yeah, I love this book so much, and everyone needs to read it. If you have not read it, you have to read it. Next book is Throttled by Lauren Asher. I'm putting this in mid. It was a really good book. I really did enjoy it. I loved the whole like race car aspect of the book, and I do want to continue with the series. I just like haven't been in the mood to, have not gotten the books, but I did really enjoy it. Mid, but it was a good book and I think people should read it. Next is Flawless by Elsie Silver, and I'm putting this in top contenders of the year. This is the first Elsie Silver book I read this year, and it was amazing. It was a country romance, and I love myself a country romance now after reading this. I love country, period. So after I read about it, it was just amazing and I loved it so much. The second book I actually read this year was Heartless, and I'm gonna put this at haven't shut up about it for a reason. I love this book. I still need to read the other 3 books. So far, Heartless is my favorite. Specifically, I haven't shut up about the girl main character in this book because she is by far my favorite girl main character I've ever read about. She would be me in a book, or I would be best friends with her like in real life. Yeah, I honestly love this book, love the series so far, and I'm so excited to like continue with it. Then the next book is When in Rome, and I'm going to put this in top contenders of the year. It was such a cute book. It was short and sweet and gave what it had to give. Yeah, I think it was a really cute book. Next book is What Happens After Midnight. I'm putting this book in personally didn't love but would recommend. This is the same author that wrote The Summer of Broken Rules, actually, believe it or not. For some reason, I just didn't really enjoy this book. The plot of the book did sound like very interesting. They go to this like boarding school, I'm pretty sure, and they have like this prankster that does this like senior prank every year, and they're doing like a scavenger hunt type thing in the book, and it sounds very interesting, but when I started reading the book, I was so like underwhelmed. I thought it was gonna be much more exciting and it just wasn't. But I think people should read it and find out for themselves if they do like it. Next book is Behind the Net. I'm putting this book in mid. I feel like mid is such like a mean word for the books. Like, that's not what I mean. Like, it was a good book, but it wasn't amazing. Like, when people ask like what books did I read in 2023, it's not like one of the first books that I think of. Next book is Happy Place. I'm putting this one in, I'm putting it I'm gonna put it in top contenders of the year, but it is also close to getting to Haven't Shut Up About It for a reason. This book, the vibes in this book are so good. I also read this book in the summer. Everything about this book is so cute. The couple in the book, the friendships, the setting in the book, it was just all very good vibes. Next book is After I Do. I'm gonna put it all the way at the top. Haven't Shut Up About It for a reason. Anytime this book gets brought up into a conversation in one of my videos, I literally have to go on a rant about it because, not to sound repetitive or insane again like I did in my other videos, but this book literally changed my perspective on life and like how I see things. I honestly do want to reread that book in the new year. It's not even really romance. They're like trying to build their connection again by going on a 1-year break. Follow mostly the girl main character and how she starts viewing life without her partner in her life. You just learn a lot of lessons in this book, and that's why I loved it. And obviously I need to shut up now. Next book was Practice Makes Perfect, and I'm gonna put this one in top contenders of the year too. I did really like this book. Some people do like When in Rome more than Practice Makes Perfect, but I liked them pretty equally. I think the guy main character book was amazing. If you guys can't tell, he has tats, and I love me a man with tats. Just the romance in the book was super cute. The setting, the small town, I loved it. Next book is Off to the Races. Personally didn't love but would recommend, because it's Elsie Silver. This is the first book in one of her other series, and I read it, but I did not enjoy it. To me, it didn't feel like it was the same author that wrote Chestnut Springs. So this series is called Gold Rush Ranch. She wrote it before Chestnut Springs, so I wanted to go back and read those books, but it didn't feel like the same author that wrote Chestnut Springs, so that's why it was like really weird to me. So personally, I didn't love that first book, but I would recommend it because it's Elsie Silver, so maybe it was just me that like something was off in the book. But I'm gonna go to the other books that are in that series actually, which is a photo finish. I'm putting this one in mid. But I feel like I hate saying mid because it sounds like mean. It wasn't an amazing book, wasn't terrible. I was waiting for their book because in the first book you get a lot of like hints at them, and their plot was really interesting, like how they became to know each other. That's also about the sister of the brothers in the Chestnut Springs. So I was like really interested in like her story. And then Out of the Gate is a novella actually. It was like a really short book that was in between the first two, and I'm gonna put this book also in mid. It's, for being such a short book, it was actually pretty interesting and I enjoyed the plot line of like the romance and all of that. But yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. And then the third book in the series is The Front Runner, and I'm putting this in top contenders of the year. I loved this book. I'm honestly really thinking still about giving this book 5 stars. The way Stefan would talk about the main character Mira was just insane, but in the best way possible. You could tell how much he was like in awe of her existence, and just the quotes in that book were so good. The romance, the banter, everything about that book was amazing. It's definitely top contenders of the year, maybe even all the way at the top, but I'm not sure. So it's just gonna stay there. Next book is The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and I'm going to put this book in mid. This book I read in the fall, and it was just a cute little sweet book to read in the fall. It was giving the fall vibes that it needed to give. It definitely put me more in the fall mood. It honestly felt like I was in Gilmore Girls. A lot of the book reminded me of the show Gilmore Girls, and I think that's why I liked it so much. Next book is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This is definitely a top contender of the year. This is the first like mystery kind of book I read, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad I started with this book. I think it's a perfect book to get into if you've never read anything like it, and I'm excited to continue with the series and read like other books that are like it. Next book is Tell Me Lies. This book honestly took me on a roller coaster, which I think it's supposed to do, but I'm going to put it in personally didn't love but would recommend. Because you know what? Maybe some people would enjoy the roller coaster this book takes you on and the toxicness and all of that. This book is insanely toxic, and you have to be prepared to get gaslit too, because not only does the girl main character get gaslit, but we as the readers get gaslit too by the main male character. I did a reading vlog on this, so go watch that if you want like my more in-depth details about the book, but didn't love it because it would frustrate me sometimes, and honestly I was like kind of disturbed, but it was entertaining, as much as I hate to say. Next book is Fourth Wing, and I'm gonna put this book in top contenders of the year. People will probably put this all the way at the top of their list. Personally, I didn't think it was like this amazing book. This is also considered one of like my first fantasy books if we're not counting the Cruel Prince trilogy. I thought a lot of things in the book were very entertaining. Top contender of the year, I'll put it there. Next book is Nick and Noelle's Christmas Playlist. I actually did a reading vlog on the next 2 books in the last video, but I'm gonna put this in, I'm gonna put it in not a fave but was tolerable. If you haven't watched the last video, go watch that because there's more like in-depth details, but I just wasn't getting the Christmas vibes that I wanted to get, because reading a Christmas book, you're going into it to get the best Christmas vibes you could get, because if not, I would just read a normal romance book. I did not get like Christmas vibes from this book like at all, really. I was really disappointed, especially because this book was like almost 400 pages. I was hoping like maybe a little Christmas in there. And then The Holiday Switch, I'm gonna put this book in mid. It was a good book, and I did get the best Christmas vibes, exactly what I was looking for. The book was like 260 pages long around there, so it was like the perfect length. The romance was cute. The setting was like in this bookstore. It was in New York, I'm pretty sure, which is like one of the best places for like a Christmas setting. So yeah, obviously I think since it's a Christmas book, it's not gonna be like all the way at the top. I think it's a really good Christmas book. Definitely would recommend that. That is what my tier ranking list looks like. So those are all the 51 books I read this year. I'm definitely very proud of myself that I read 51 books and I went over my reading goal. I didn't think I was gonna be able to do it, but I did, and I'm very proud of myself, so pat on the back for me. I'll see next year how many books I read. So this is actually the last video that I'm posting in 2023, and I just want to say I'm so grateful for the year I've had. I definitely tried my best to post a lot more this year with all the stuff that I already have going on in my life. But I love posting YouTube videos, and I definitely do want to do more of it in the new year. Yeah. This is the last video of 2023, so I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn on your post notifications so you know when I post my next video. Happy New Year. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.